Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. As you can see, Gil has done his hair for this occasion, and we are here in full glory.
And that's Robin, if you didn't know. She's the one with the good hair.
And that's Gil. Well, I'm the one with the hidden hair. Anyway, welcome to Rockin' the Love. And this is a show all about just that, rockin' the love. Because at the end of the day, what else is there but love? And so the more we rock it, the more we spread it, the more we are it, the more we live in it, the more the world will be the place we all want to see. So, as he said, I'm Robin, he's Gil, and we are a married couple. And you will probably find that out really clearly during this show. Because sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't.
Yeah, I think we should add we're a married couple still.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So, what do you want to talk about?
Well, today we're going to talk about what kind of relationship you want.
We are, and it's kind of like a surprise party for me because all I got was the topic before we started. So Gil has a little more information, but we're gonna go at it and tackle it and see what we can do with it.
Absolutely.
So, what kind of relationship do you want? Okay, we're not going to do it yet though, because first we're going to talk about our week.
What's going on?
How was your week?
My week has been very productive and busy and good, and I've loved it. And today was like Christmas.
So let me just explain that because this goes into my week. So last week our topic was sacred space and creating sacred space. Hey Shay.
Hi, Shay.
Sorry that Gil hasn't called you back. It's been a very busy week.
It's been insane.
But good. Anyway, so after the show last week, after Sacred Spaces, I don't know, but spirit infused his body and he became like the sacred space master. So our lovely friends who had been visiting with us gave us a gift certificate to Amazon for $50, which was lovely and so appreciated. And so we went on to see what we might want to get or what we've been thinking about. And what, $1,500 later?
Yeah, I'm not so happy with our friends anymore.
$1,500 later, we had created a new sacred space.
That's true.
We went patio crazy. So any of you who are coming to New Mexico, you do want to stop by and see our patio because not everything's here yet, but it's going to be super lovely. We have big couch sectional and we picked out fire pit and
which is here and built. We enjoyed in the wind last night.
Yes, it's very lovely. And I had already ordered some lights for outside and yeah, it's super fun. So we took creating a sacred space to heart, and we are very excited not only to have that very sacred space and create it, but to be able to meditate in it and have friends in it and all those good things. So it's been a great week, and it was super fun to do that on the heels of the show because it really was a motivator. Wouldn't you say?
It really was this idea of like, where do we have a space and where does it feel good? And and I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun. We also had just gotten a couple of different chair pieces for the house, which also feel like we have a little more cuddly space. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So we did some home stuff, and that was super fun. Even for our dog, we got a new dog bowl. So anyway, with the water that circulates, like a real trendy kind of thing. Anyway, so that was fun. So that's been our week. Other than my team advancing to the National League Championships and going in for Game 2 with New York tonight.
Who's your team? You can't read it. It's LA. Oh, the Dodgers. Okay.
We love it. LA. Anyway, that's our story. I mean, it's been a great week. It's been a really good week. Also, Robert, our godson, was gone for a few days, so we had some alone time, and that was great. Oh, nice, Shay. Shay says
Oh,
she rearranged her bedroom, and it's awesome. Feng shuied it even more. That's so great. That is so great. Yeah, we did some stuff in our bedroom too. We got a new we went what do you call like thrift shopping, right? We were trolling Craigslist and
next
next
door.
door and finding things that were great. And we got this well, Gil calls it a corner piece to a couch. When they sold it at the what is it called, the not Pottery Barn, wherever it was. No, not
I
Great
don't
and Bear.
remember.
Anyway, a store that I really liked. They, it was just like a long couch, but it's like a little corner piece that fits in our room. So it's kind of cool because you don't have to sit on the bed. You could sit there and read a book, or it's right by the window. You could snuggle up in the rain with your tea and your book. Is my fantasy to really be able to do those things.
Or you could walk just outside our room to the new furniture that will be there in a couple weeks.
You could do that too.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's fun, and it's just it just feels good to do that. We also took Monday and actually kind of holidayed it a little bit. We were thinking we were going to go out and do lots of things, and well, we ended up doing several little things when we left the house finally. But before it was time to go on to picking up the kid at the airport, we ran out of time. We
did.
But we spent the whole first part of the day just relaxing. So that was nice. So
that's
anyway.
our story. Isn't it fun now that we're together, Shay? That it's a whole different story, right? Anyway, so here we are, and it's time for the good news.
It is time for the good news.
Yes.
And I have some good news for you all. So y'all know how big cruise ships are. Well, they weren't always quite this big, but it's a huge chunk of metal, etc. Well, there's one called the United States. And the U.S. and the United States was originally built in the 50s so that they could carry troops across the United States around, I don't know. And they realized pretty quickly that wasn't really a needed idea. So, but anyway, it's actually it has the transatlantic record of speed because it was built as a military ship. So it goes very fast. They converted it to a cruise liner, and then they decommissioned it years and years ago. And it's been sitting. And so now Florida wants to bring it down and sink it and make it part of an artificial reef. And so this huge thing, which seems like such a blight, well, what they do is they sink the ship down, and it creates all these spaces for the aquatic animals to live and to grow, plants and animals, etc. And so it becomes like a reef, and then without actually growing a reef, you have this thing.
So they're getting their sacred space.
They're getting their sacred space, yes. And just a side note, they estimate that for every dollar spent on creating a reef, an artificial reef, for every dollar spent, it is a return of $138 in terms of economy and all kinds of stuff. So it's a very good investment,
I like that
too.
Investment.
Yeah. I was thinking I would do that. But
build a boat.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And it sounds like it creates a harmonious place there in the ocean.
It does. It does.
Nice.
So what about you?
So my good news is about a dog, because I like those dog stories, those animal stories. And the dog's from Washington State, and the dog is credited with saving its owner's life. What it did was went and it sat in the there was this off road. It went and it sat excuse me, in the middle of the street, and it sat and sat and sat until somebody came, and finally the person that stopped was um, a deputy Wright, who was patrolling the area, and he tried to move the dog, and the dog wouldn't move. The dog laid down and like he wouldn't budge. He tried to get him in the patrol car, he wouldn't budge, and finally he took off. The dog took off, and so the deputy followed him, and followed him into um, a nearby residence that was kind of off the back road, and um, the dog led him to a small summer cabin, and he began checking around the area, and he observed an elderly male lying on the ground calling for help a short distance from the cabin. And it was an 84-year-old male who was the dog's owner, who also had other medical conditions, that had hurt his leg and fallen and injured himself. And
The dog
the dog
went out and waited till he found somebody.
Yep, and they said they credit the dog, Gita. Gita's the dog's name, for saving his life, and that, that loyalty and that, heroic thing, that it really an incredible intelligence and dedication, that
Yeah.
it wouldn't, had the man laid there longer,
Right. Who knows?
who knows?
When
And
somebody would have found him,
Right.
etc. And doesn't that it makes me feel guilty, because when I was a kid, I used to watch Lassie and think it was ridiculous.
I didn't think it was
Timmy's in the
ridiculous.
well, quick.
Yeah, but see, I didn't think it was ridiculous. And no, these stories to me always just speak to that oneness that we say is
It's true.
in everything. It's like with our dog. I know everybody thinks their dog is the best thing ever. And it's true. And, like I know with this dog, who I am not as fond of as I have been of other dogs, solely because he's not fond of me. But but I love and respect him anyway.
Who's the adult in this relationship?
we don't know.
We don't know.
But to watch his intelligence when I just say things like, okay, really, you're gonna have to get off the bed now and go to the chair. And he does it. And I'm thinking, we've never taught him that. We've never, we've never, there's things we've never said to the dog, and you say it to them and they look at you and go do something, and you're like, oh my God, did he understand? And then on the other hand, I go, oh my God, of course, how could he not understand? He's been listening to us.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know, but all in all, what I know is it is amazing and animal, and that's what I think.
Yay, doggo.
Look, I love that picture with the crown, Shay.
That's great.
Cute as that. Yeah, go dogs. Animals won. All right. So when we come back, we are going to talk about.
We're going to talk about what kind of relationship do we want? What is it? Do we want a loving relationship? Do we want a toxic relationship? What do we want? And when you think about this, it's like, I really realize that it's so powerful to think of it in terms of being with ourselves and how we treat ourselves, and also a kind of relationship we might be in a significant other. So,
Well, but am I wrong? It's not that, do we want a loving relationship or a toxic relationship? Because we're going to say we don't want a toxic relationship. But if we want a relationship where certain things are happening, like the other person is making all the decisions, or,
right.
Blah, 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 how does that play out? Isn't that true?
Right. It's more like recognizing what kind of, how you're acting in a relationship, and how it's making you feel, and saying, do I really want that, or do I want this?
Yeah. So what are the qualities you're calling into your relationship, and
Exactly.
and how many different kinds of relationships are there?
Who knows? The article out that said 25. I'm sure there are many more, but that was just a starting point.
All right.
Are we ready?
We'll see you in a minute. Come right back.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
That's what.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Rockin' the Love. I'm Gil.
And I'm Robin.
And we've got a little sunshine coming in our window this morning. That is quite lovely. Actually, here in New Mexico, where we are broadcasting from right now, I have to tell you that we are experiencing a little hint of moving into the fall. It's not supposed to get up above 70 today. Woo! And it's been cooling way off at night, and it's predicted to do even more in the next few days. So
I told Gil that the telltale sign of when it's changing seasons here is when the coconut oil starts to harden.
And it starts to harden, and it's soft, and it's really nice. You're kind of in a in-between time. And then when it gets hard, you know it's wintertime.
It's true. It's true.
And in summertime, you just pour it out. It's great. Oh, my goodness.
All right. So we're talking about relationships. So, okay, well, let's just start it off with Shay's comment because Shay is putting it out there. I want a divinely infused, respectful, and loving relationship with God, myself, friends, a man at some point, my communities, and the universe. It's not too much to ask. Nope, it's not. It is not too much to ask.
And along those lines, Shay, thank you for saying that. We've been a group of us studying a book called The Abundance Project, and that's exactly one of the points that we just covered was asking for what we want and asking for whatever it is, not just some version of it that we think is attainable, you know, or somehow we deserve or whatever that is, but not limiting it, but asking for exactly what we want and asking for a lot of it. So I just honor you with that statement. That's great.
And what's a lot anyway?
Right.
What's a lot to the universe?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If I want to be a millionaire, is that a lot?
For the universe?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. No.
What's a lot? So I say ask away.
Yeah. And the reality is, one of the other points to talk about is it all comes from within us anyway, because Source completely resides right where we are. So we have everything we need. It's all available to us. We're just simply finding the ways to allow it to show up in our lives.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So Tim, give me a question.
So
Tell me what's happening.
okay, so we know about various different kinds of relationships. So I think many of us have been in something we might call a toxic relationship, where there's always criticism, and no matter what happens, somebody ends up angry, and it's like the worst of yourself, and and if there's another person involved, the worst of them comes out in the relationship. So I just mentioned that as that's one of the ones that doesn't work, and I'm going to hit on some of the ones that don't work as well. One of them is a controlling relationship. How many of us? What do you think about that? Have you ever seen that, where someone's like controlling, always calls the shots, always
Yeah.
keeping it, whatever.
Well, I'm still back on toxic.
Okay, back on toxic.
Sorry, but I don't think I don't. The way you're describing toxic relationship, I don't think I've ever been in a toxic relationship like that. I don't think I've ever been in one. Now, have I been in one where people had toxic behaviors? Sure. Different addictions or different things that were going on, but I don't feel like it was like the basis of it was we fought and there was this and there was that, the way you just described it.
Well, I kind of feel like I was in one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it continued that way even after we weren't, quote, in it, because it still was in a relationship with the person. So I think that's possible. I see it where try as one might, for me anyway, it's difficult to move into the places I want to be and the way I want to act in relationship with that person. It's not all their fault, really. It's not all the other person's fault or one person's fault that it's toxic. It's a combination, and somehow it's like, trying to think. It's like, when you put certain spices in food to bring out the flavor, and it's like you bring out either the best or the worst in somebody else. So that's what I was thinking about. Okay. Controlling. Have you ever seen a controlling relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yes. What comes to mind mostly is friends, who've been controlled by something their partner or spouse wants them to do, or a way they want them to live and to be.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my friends in college that her boyfriend literally locked her in the room so she couldn't get out because he didn't want her to go out with us on a Friday night or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, what I was thinking as you said that is how that shows up in different people, because I think some people actually have things in their life that are controlling them, or they're allowing to control them, and so they have this controlling relationship with how they function, with things in their life that are not healthy for them. And I think we have friends like that. We've seen that in different places.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a scary one. Just hitting on some of the things that come up, and realizing, if you sit with the idea of a controlling relationship or a toxic relationship, how does it feel? What's it like?
Well, and I would say that we have friends in toxic relationships right now. What we would describe as toxic, and not even being judgmental, because I think there's a fine line between what works for me and what works for you. Right.
Yeah.
And if it works for you, and there's a fine line to that. But when you hear the person or the people talk and there's no joy, or there's no real payoff in any of the actions. You know what I mean? Like back in college, when my friend got locked in the room, there was a payoff. There was something for her that said, oh, he loves me and this is okay and I'm okay with it. Not that that's good, but you know what I mean? At least it was, you know what I'm saying, don't you?
She felt
Do
taken
you?
care of somehow or some weird
Yeah,
thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. To her teenage self, it was um, there was some payoff, and it wasn't. I don't know, but anyway, saying now, I mean, but there was no joy. I mean, there was joy in that, and so I'm saying when there's a relationship where there's no joy, where there's really no getting back.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's nothing there to work from. But I can imagine even in those things where there's some, we can twist it some and make it good for us, that we still have these feelings of uncomfortability or frustration or whatever that keep coming up in small ways because we keep going, this doesn't feel right, and that's kind of what I was thinking. So here's one we can speak to.
Okay.
Long distance relationship. Ever had one of those?
I've actually had several.
Oh, okay.
I've had several.
Do tell.
Well, no, I mean, growing up, I traveled a lot and I lived in Mexico and I went to college in Mexico. So I had relationships in Mexico, and so then I would come home or be here and we'd have to sustain that relationship. So I think I'm relatively good at long distance relationships. I mean, in that for me, there's a part, I mean, and I like relationships. I like the relate in relationships. I'm very relational. I like to have that romance and that connection and that romance and that connection.
And that romance?
And that,
yeah.
And that connection and that, and I think you have to work at long distance relationships. But interesting enough, a friend of ours who's having a long distance relationship, it's like I was explaining to them the other day that when you don't have that sensation, that touch, that connection, then you start to rely on your other senses. So it's super important that you're getting fed in some other way. You know what I'm saying?
Oh wow, I never thought of it like that. I mean, that's kind of the idea when people lose their sight and their hearing becomes incredibly clear and they're able to determine things that you and I probably would never notice,
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense. You take away one of your senses and this is what our body does with everything. I think it makes up for it somehow. It finds a way to work with it.
Well, yeah. And when we were living apart, I'm going to talk about the doing aspect of it. For me, it was important to me to mail you a card or make a phone call, and it was important to me when you had somebody bring me flowers or, things like that. And yeah, I just don't think those things can ever happen enough when you're apart.
Mm. But I think it's interesting that it does work for people, and
long distance.
Yeah, I think sometimes people really feel good about it. They get what they need from it, and but anyway, we had a lot of experience because that's how we started.
Well, I think there's an element too. I mean, there's an element of depending upon your relationship, and I'm stereotyping, but I mean, I think there's older people, and by older I mean 40s, 50s, 60s. I just mean older than younger. Older people who having a relationship like that,
right?
Because you have your space, and then when you're together, you have your together, and your together is very clear. It's not, you don't take it for granted like you do when you come home every night.
That's true.
So it is very different.
Well, I know that for me, there's been an adjustment having us back together,
Mm-hmm.
In part because the expectations are different. with what I do and how I relate and my expectations of you and what you do and what, all that stuff shifts because now we're in the same space and we're, we literally are seeing everything we're doing.
And we're trying to make something else work.
Yeah.
I just want to touch, Shay says, I'd be willing to start out in a long distance relationship, but I would want more as we progress. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say to that most modern meetups happen online. Yeah, they do.
A lot do.
And I mean, but I want to say too that though, I mean, I think I like long distance relationships, and a lot of my relationships have actually started up, not necessarily online, but same, what do you call it?
Same idea.
Same idea. Virtually, or somebody I knew. Gil and I met over the phone.
Right.
We talked a lot before we even met face to face, and so we. I think there's, when you say start that way, I think there's something like, I really get the how relationships worked in the olden days in some ways, like where you had to write letters to your partner that you had to marry, but you didn't know him or her. And, but I could see where through that corresponding and through that time, you really got to know someone in a different way. And I mean, I think that's absolutely true for us.
Mm-hmm.
If we hadn't talked on the phone, we talked on the phone for months before we met. And,
we knew a lot about each other. And we knew how we felt about each other. And it had to do with that time and being able to communicate and spending time. I mean, if we really weren't communicating as much, it would have been different. But it was interesting when we shifted to that, 20 years later, and it felt way more secure.
Exactly. I think it is more secure, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it is more secure because there's that safety and anonymity when you're just talking to someone you don't know yet, or you haven't really had a lot of time with. Like, I know a lot of my friends who do online dating or have done online dating. They're like, I just want to go for coffee. I just want to meet him and go for coffee. And it's like, why don't you just talk for a while? They're like, I don't want to waste my time talking. But I see it the other way. It's like, if you talk to somebody, but I get it. The people I'm talking about, they don't want to waste their time talking and then meet and decide, oh, he's not my type, or he's not this, or he's not that. And I go the other way, because I think that when you've talked to somebody and you've really learned who they are, then when you meet them, you're not as tied into, oh, he doesn't look the way I wanted him to look. He's not as tall as I wanted him to be. He's not as this. He's too fat. He's too this. You're more in touch with the person.
So why are you describing all the things that you thought about me?
I'm not.
I wasn't tall enough.
And don't tell me.
Too much hair on my chest.
Don't tell me after the show that I was mean, because I'm not.
I know you're not. You're not. No. But that's really true. I mean, I was thinking as you said that, it's like the surface stuff that we judge people on, they don't dress well, they, whatever it is, right? Well, you've already cut to some level of knowing each other that you don't have to just look at that and go, I'm out. Or, oh, that's great. They're so pretty. It's like, well, that's great, but she's a real jerk on the phone all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, Gil and I were super clear that probably if we hadn't met on the phone, this would have never happened.
Right.
It would have never happened because, and also in our conversation, we weren't trying to date. We weren't trying to, have a relationship.
It's true.
And so we heard different things from each other that we were like, that's crazy. I would never do that, or I would never think that. I mean, we were so opposite on so many things until we weren't, until he saw the light. No, I'm just kidding. So Shay said we need a New Thought dating app. There actually is one. There is some, or I don't know about an app, but there is a like some New Thought dating thing. But everyone I know who's ever gone on it is like, eh.
Well, we'll have to find out what it is, or we can at least let people check it out. I was just going to say that a lot of this stuff we worked out when we first got together in grocery store parking lots. So that was fun. We would spend hours sitting in the car trying to work through something. And we got through them all. Well, most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think long distance or, taking your time with a relationship, Shay, is great, and then of course moving into, where you're together and, accessible to each other.
So what about the complicated relationship? You ever hear people say, "Oh, it's complicated"?
Oh, well, I don't know one relationship that isn't complicated, but okay. I don't.
Well, I think you're right at some level, yes. But I think in the sense that they're using it in here, there's that where people kind of try to explain everything away by, oh, well, it's complicated. I know he loves me, or I love him, or whatever the heck they say. And yet there's things that just don't make sense, and the way they work with it, well, it's complicated. You wouldn't understand. At least that's how I kind of heard that when I read it in here.
Well, I think there's more than one aspect of complicated.
Yeah. Life is complicated, period.
Life is complicated. Things can be complicated. And I think a lot of times that it's complicated answer is that I'm working through it myself and I don't quite understand it, or I know that you're going to have an opinion about it, or you're going to think blah, blah, blah.
Shay has an opinion. It's complicated. It's messed up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shay.
But I think, on some level, I think that's right, because I think, when you say it's complicated, there's something going on in your head about it.
Right. And that's kind of what I was getting at. That's what I was thinking with it, was that. Do you like to have fun? Mm-hmm. I think you do. That's my experience of you. So
I'm all about the fun.
The fun. So what's it like being in a fun relationship? Do you know? Do you feel like you have that in your life? You can't remember.
I'm just kidding. For me, I really like life. And maybe we all do, but I really like it. Like, yes, do I wish I had more of this or less of that or all of those things? Yeah, I do. Of course, there are things, but for the most part, I'm really happy. I feel like, even though it hasn't necessarily looked the way I think it should look, I feel like I fulfill my purpose, my mission here on earth. I feel like I'm doing what I'm here to do. So I like to have fun, and I don't, I know it's annoying to you sometimes, but I don't see any reason why everything can't be fun.
You are good at that. You are really good at that concept, of really taking things and making them fun. And I appreciate that a lot. Your joke the last week, the week before, well, not joke, but when we were talking about everything was a date. That was sort of that everything can be fun. Doesn't matter. We have to go to Costco. We got to buy, eggs. Well, we're on a date.
It's true. And I was thinking about that in terms of relationship. I was thinking about that with our godson, because I was really thinking that we have to go to that place of making everything fun and a learning, and, as opposed to, oh my God, you didn't get it again? What do you mean? We've told you 92 times how to pick up your sock and put it in the hamper. Yeah, but on some level there, I don't know. We just have to go back to that, because it's like, I feel like, I don't know. Like I told you, and I told him I'm not having fun.
Right.
This isn't
Right.
fun, so this doesn't work for me.
Well, like when here in Albuquerque, there's a tramway which goes up the mountain. So you go from about 5,000 feet or 6,000 feet down in the valley area, up the mountain, you're at 10,000 feet, and it's pretty cool. You get up there and there's stuff to see, and there's trails, and there's a ski resort that happens in the winter and all that kind of stuff. Well, we went there recently with our godson, and it was fun. We walked around, we did some stuff, we checked things out, we had fun. We even had fun sitting at the picnic table eating. And I'm just saying, so it doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be anything, but sometimes it's good just to have fun.
Yeah. Look, Shay says she needs to hang out with me. Yay, because I'm fun.
Oh, is that okay?
I'm guessing that's why.
You're guessing that's why?
See, and I always think Shay likes you best, but she needs to hang out with me.
Nah, she's giving up with me. So what does it mean when people have a true love relationship? Pardon me, excuse me. What does it mean when it's true love? What do we think of? What do we see?
Honestly, well, what do you think it means?
I think when people refer to that, especially earlier in a relationship, you're thinking that it's so it just feels so warm and fuzzy, and you just you appreciate everything about the other person, and you think it's so cute when they do the things that you hate later. It's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I just want to acknowledge Liz is with us. Hi, Liz.
Welcome, Liz.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. I for me, a true love relationship is really being in love with yourself and with God, in my opinion. I mean, because I think when you are in love with the one, then you can see the reflection of the one in everyone. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds very woo, but it's true. I mean, I just think, I like it because of what you said, like Gil knows, people used to say to me, how did you know Gil was the one, and my answer generally was,
he was so cute. Oh no, that wasn't it. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
And fun and talented and amazing. It was all of that, but it was also, I knew he was the one because of the things that he did that I wouldn't have liked, or that would have driven me crazy any other time, didn't drive me crazy. And which drove me a little crazy, but it didn't, because I was like, why am I okay with this? But it's like all of a sudden things it didn't matter, because it was just a different expression. And so, yeah, on some level I had to let go of whatever my stereotypical thought or answer or limit had been, benchmark, whatever. So I think true love also, there's a part that you do know, like that your souls are connected, that it's a deeper bond somehow, that like you just are able, I think it's different for everyone, but the things like finishing your sentences or knowing what the other person's thinking, like a lot when we started in the beginning, when we hadn't met yet and we were just on the phone, there'd be times like where Gil would call, or I'd call Gil, and he'd be like, oh, I was just thinking about you. I was just this, I was just that. Or he'd call me and he's like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I'd be like, no, I've been sick all night, and whatever. But he would know. I mean, there was that inner knowing, that connectedness,
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Even if you don't know what you know, but
right. Well, when I think about it, the other thing I really think about is how whatever we call that true love thing, that in a relationship where it continues to grow and it continues to manifest in new ways, then I think that's where I would really jump into calling it. It's true love because it continues to be something that's dynamic and moving and growing.
Yeah, and Shay says that's called animation.
Animation. Okay.
Say more about that, Shay. Because when I think of animation, I think of Pixar and Disney and Inside Out. No, seriously. I'm in the entertainment business. I'm like, animation. So what exactly does that mean? Just give us a little bit more info there. Yeah, but I mean, true love.
So why do you think sometimes we get into those clingy relationships? Oh, she says that animation, that's called animation, that spark. That makes it animated, that animates the thing. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and we did that when we were younger. We did. I mean, I remember when we first met, and of course my friends and family were like, wait, you met him on the phone? No, everybody was a little leery. It was 20 years ago, so people weren't as into, dating virtually kind of thing. Anyway, but I remember taking him to meet my sister, and all the way, before she met him, she was like, "Are you sure you don't know him?" La 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 la. And when we got there and sat with her in her house, she's like, "Oh my God," because there was that spark. There was that you could feel the connection, and you could feel the energy. I mean, that couldn't be denied.
I remember going to their house.
Yeah.
That was wild. That was so long ago. And then we did Creative Memories together.
Sure we did.
Coined by Carolyn Mays. It's Kismet. Miss.
Carolyn Miss.
It's warm, fuzzy love at first sight.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. Well, there's that love at first sight, and then there's that kind of that every time you see each other, it sort of is the first sight. It just continues to spark, continues to be there. And when I say that, I don't think 24/7, 365, that's what's happening. If it is for someone, I'm happy as heck for you. But I think it's a lot to expect from ourselves or from a partner. But there continues to be those places where that happens.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Yeah, I don't think 24/7, 365 necessarily, but I kind of do. I mean, I feel like I know people who, like one of my best friends, their parents, his dad called his mom every day at 1:00 from work just to say he loved her. And I think, certain things like that, like certain commitments, like I do feel like that a lot of the times when I see you and whatever, when we haven't been together, when you come home, all those things. I mean, and you know that because I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, here we are.
You want to play cards? You want to go back?
I'm all ready to play and to start anew. And, you're stuck in your world of stuff. So wow. I do think
stick in the mud.
No, but you know what I mean? I do think that it's possible. I mean, but I think I also think it entails commitment. And I think there has to be a level, if for that level of connection and the constant of it to continue, I think there has to be a real dedication and a real willingness and a real, letting go of everything else that's going on. So it's kind of like your minister story with the minister and the wife, and you can tell that in a second. But I mean, it's like you have to be ready to leave the rest of the stuff behind at some point and commit to what you're doing.
Yeah, years and years ago, a Methodist minister mentor friend told the story of when he realized that he was not doing well at prioritizing his family and home. And his secretary at the office came in and said, your 3 o'clock's here. And he said, send him in. And it was his wife. She had made an appointment on his calendar so that she could come see him. And he was like, oh.
And that's no joke. I mean,
Yeah.
I've made an appointment with you too on your Calendly. It's just updated version. But it's no joke, and it's understandable because you're on a mission and you're doing things and you're
Right.
entrenched, and it's not like you work for, a company that goes, okay, 9 to 5 loop and your whistle blows, and so it does take that priority to create the space, like, all right, and get excited. Now I'm going home to my wife or my family, and that's exciting, as opposed to
I'm going home to my fireplace on the patio.
that too. But often, and not, and this is for everybody, often, it's, I'm going home, and at home I have to do
Right.
X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And, and so it's like, how do we look at our relationships?
So Shay chimed in that radical acceptance has to be part of the dynamic or it doesn't work. And I think that's so key to all of it. And that's radical acceptance. We have to live in that with ourselves, and we have to live in that with the people that we're in relationship with to really be able to continue. And she goes on to say, it doesn't mean behaviors are always acceptable, but forgiveness is what that's for. So the idea that we still have to deal with sometimes letting things go and knowing, just forgiving the other person or whatever's happened or ourselves, but it's radical acceptance that whatever is, and that's okay. It's all love.
Well, and I think the forgiveness part is key too, because it's really letting go of all that's gone before this moment and choosing a new now, and forgiving yourself for not having enough time with this person, or not doing this, or not getting that done, or whatever it is, and instead of going, you always think I blah, 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 figuring out what it is you think and fixing that and moving on. I think that's the key to a lot in relationships. It's not, a lot of times we find ourselves in a relationship going, you always, or you never,
Right.
And it's like, again, what is that for me? What is the,
why am I always here with you when you do that?
Yeah.
Right. There's something to that. Like what part in it do I play that makes that happen?
Yeah.
So let's see. One more comment here from Shay. Don Miguel says, you got to like that fish. If you don't, get another fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. That's absolutely true. That's part of, I think, respectful, honoring relationship, and honoring when relationships are complete for whatever they've been for in your life. Whether it's a relationship to a particular job, a relationship to a particular friend, a relationship to a partner. I think sometimes we think that if it doesn't go forever, it's wrong. Or we're taught that, at least. And I think sometimes we have to go, well, this isn't who we are anymore. So I need to do something different. I don't think I can be the person that you need now. I don't, whether that's for your job or for your partner, that I know it's time for me to let it go, because I know you're expanding, you're going somewhere, whatever that is.
Yeah. That brings up, for me, that brings up like relationships that are gone. I think that's a good topic to do.
Relationships that are gone.
Yeah, and mourning relationships that are gone, because there are those that, we let go of easily, and there are those, like I was thinking the other day about different people in my life. I'm like, why don't I talk to them anymore? Like I can't really remember. Like a friend of mine on LinkedIn that I hadn't talked to, and for whoever forever, who was my best friend at a time, was like, "I miss you," and I haven't talked to them in over 10 years. And I said, "So why don't you call me?" Because I couldn't even remember really why we don't talk. You know,
Wow.
and
Wow.
so and yeah, so it's like what does happen to those relationships, and how many of them do we hold on to even when they're over, and we either mourn them, or we wish they weren't, or we don't know why they are, or we wish. So
Yeah. Yeah. So along those lines, Shay says, I just thought about my ex. It wasn't a total loss. I'd love a show on this topic. Thank you for saying that. I think many of us would, and exploring the difference between shifting into a new way of relating and being grateful for the change, or releasing it altogether and being grateful for what you had, all that kind of stuff
yeah,
can be mixed in there. So
perhaps that's what we'll do next week.
okay.
And please send us any ideas or thoughts or topics for shows. We'd love to hear them. You can send them to Robin and Gail at rockinthelove.com. And that's Robin with a Y, Gail with one L. And we will definitely get them into our a calendar. So I think that's it for today.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it. It's very fun. This is a good time for us, as well as hopefully other people enjoy it too. So thank you.
And as soon as our patio is set up, we will do our show from there and show you guys everything in our new sacred space. But in the meantime, keep creating your sacred space and rock the love.
Keep on rocking the love, everybody.
Good to see you all. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Rock the love.